Owen Morgan led Middlesex to their first win in the Royal London One Day Cup with a brilliant 100 at Lords, which saw his side defeat neighbours Surrey by 6 wickets with 31 balls to spare as the visitors slipped to their second successive defeat. Gary Wilson batted after winning the toss but lost Stephen Davis in the 6th over when he edged Tim Murtagh to Darwin Milan on 13. Stephen Finn again bowled with pace as Vikram Solanki soon discovered. He recovered from that and drove Neil Dexter down the ground for the game's first 6, which arrived in the 18th over. Surrey were making steady progress against a well-disciplined home attack. Tilakaratne Dilshan took his time, but the Sri Lankan was able to open up a bit against the spin of Ravi Patel. The 100 was brought up in the 22nd over with 9 wickets still in hand. Solanki was first to his 50, which arrived off his 65th delivery, from which 1 6 and 6 4s had been struck. He and his equally experienced partner were setting things up rather nicely for a grandstand finish. Dilshan shouldn't have got to his half-century. He was caught when too many fielders were outside the circle, and that allowed him to raise his bat after facing 62 balls. He'd only found the boundary on 4 occasions from those. This pair had added 119 runs in 25 overs when Solanki on 59 was LBW to Malan on the sweep, with the total on 142 for 2 after 31. At the end of 34 overs, it had moved on to 157 for 3, Rory Burns slipping over mid-pitch to be run out by Morgan after making 9. Wilson then gave Harry Podmore his maiden List A wicket on debut, John Simpson taking the catch off a regulation edge behind the stumps. Surrey were losing their way, but they had plenty left in the tank, with Azhar Mahmood bringing up the 200 with a 6 off Patel in over number 42. Dilshan now had to finish off what he'd started. A cut off Milan took him into the 90s, and his ton, the 25th of his one-day career, arrived courtesy of the scoop that he'd made so famous over the years. The opener had used up 120 balls to get to 3 figures, from which he'd hit just the 8 4s. It was not quite the innings many have come to expect from the ultra-talented batsman. The boundaries, though, were beginning to flow now as Surrey went big at the end, as they had to do. All the shots were coming out now as this pair took their partnership for the 5th wicket at 81, made in 50 balls. The visitors would have been hopeful of a final score of around 300. But on 115, Dilshan was out in the 47th over, edging Finn behind, with the total now on 258 for 5. Azhar was still there, however, and a 4 off Podmore, the batsman's 7th to go with his 1 maximum, took him to his 50 off only 31 deliveries. He was out at the start of the penultimate over, Finn striking for a second time by having the 39-year-old Pakistani caught in the deep by Milan, as Surrey settled for a total of 286 for 6 from their 50 overs. Middlesex have been poor in both one-day competitions this year, and they came into this match on the back of 2 defeats from 2 in the Royal London One Day Cup. They desperately needed a change of fortunes, and Chris Rogers and Milan helped them on their way here by putting on 56 runs in the first 9 overs of their reply. Milan had made 18 of those when he drove Stuart Meeker with 1 hand to Zafar Ansari in the covers. 30 runs later, and Rogers was also on his way, top-edging a sweep off Dilshan to George Edwards at short fine leg after making 42. In the next over, the 17th, Nick Gubbins took on a single that wasn't really there off Gareth Batty, who completed the run-out to send Gubbins on his way for 20. It was feisty out there, and Dilshan even resorted to using rugby tackles to stop Middlesex from scoring. It looked as if it may be one of those days again for the Panthers, a side which hasn't been able to go through many one-day games without coming upon problems along the way. Morgan and Ryan Higgins carried the total to 126 in the 25th over, only for the latter to chip a return catch to Ansari. So, with 6 wickets in hand, Middlesex were left with 159 runs to get from the second half of their innings, but Morgan was now set, and he sent this ball from Dilshan for a 6. 136 were wanted off the final 20 overs, and Morgan was now the key man for his team. This single took him to his 50 off 46 balls, from which he'd struck 4 fours and 1 6. He, though, was just warming up. He brought up the 200 in the 38th over with his second maximum, as he pulled Azar over square leg to move into the 70s. He needed support from somewhere, and he was offered it by Dexter, who played a very canny innings. Leaving the majority of the scoring to his captain at the other end, Dexter still found the boundary from time to time to ensure that his side kept above the required run rate. 56 were left to get off the last 10 overs. That was brought down to 35 off 7, and then Morgan decided to get the job over and done with as quickly as possible. He brought up the 12th hundred of his one-day career by sending Dilshan into the distance to get to 3 figures off only 79 balls, his second 50 coming off just 33. This was the England man at his very best in the one-day format, and he showed just why he's so admired in this game. The next 2 balls were smashed for 4s, and then Morgan's slog swept Dilshan into the mound stand again as 22 runs came off the 44th over. Dexter then decided to join in the next one by belting Ansari over the rope, as 8 runs came off the first 3 deliveries of over number 44. Morgan then struck the next ball for 4 before he finished off the game in the ideal manner with his 5th maximum. A look to the sky showed just how important this victory was for Middlesex and their captain, who ended on 128 made from only 86 deliveries. It was some knock. With Dexter, who helped himself to an untroubled 47 off 58, Morgan had seen his side over the line with a 166-run partnership made in 20.5 overs, the last 101 coming in 8.5. It meant that Middlesex took this local derby by 6 wickets with 31 balls to spare for their first success. They next return to Lord's next Thursday for a match with Somerset, while Surrey will search for their first win at home to Kent on Tuesday.